The National Union of Mine Workers says it would embark on a national protest against the planned closure of Eskom power stations. NUM have accused the power utility of sidelining it in reaching the decision to uplift renewable energy. Eskom is preparing to shut down 5 power stations in a bid to boost renewable energy and support independent power producers. The power stations to be shut down are Hendrina, Kriel, Komati, Grootvlei and Camden in Mpumalanga. Eskom spokesperson Siwe confirmed that the power supplier had already begun a phased-out process to decommission the power stations over the next 10 years in a bid to reduce greenhouse carbon emissions, saying that one of the ways was to have renewable energy. The NUM has said, and I quote, "The NUM has noted that the decision is already taken without our involvement to partly privatize Eskom. We view the entrance or the inclusion of IPP to the energy sphere as privatization brought to Eskom through the back door. As much as we support green energy, we cannot ignore scientific facts. Green energy is not as cheap as it is portrayed by the capitalists who are dealing with it." And joining us on the phone line is Eskom spokesperson Siwe to further unpack this. A very good morning to you, Siwe. Thank you so much for your time. Can you please talk us through the decision to close 5 power stations and utilize independent power producers?
Well, it was not an easy decision to come to because obviously closing a power station essentially is not only that. It also involves potentially closing or affecting the operations of mining happening around that facility as well. But for us as a company, we currently have enough generating capacity and the economy is not growing as fast as anticipated. And also the fact that the renewables are more, part of the energy mix. We want to bring them on board, but they don't have. So for us to create space essentially means that we have to close some of our stations. And the renewables, by the way, it has to be understood that are part of South Africa's plans. In terms of government's plan, I think up until 2050, we would like to have more renewables coming on board, including other energy mixes like gas and nuclear and other things in between. But renewables in particular, because right now, Eskom has been criticized severely over the last 2-3 years. People saying that we are recalcitrant, we are disobeying government, we don't want to sign them on. We are now saying we want to sign them on. Fortunately or fortunately, it means that we're going to have to create space for them, and the creation of space is through the closure of some of our power stations.
Now, what does this phased-out process to decommission the power stations over the next 10 years entail exactly?
Well, it's going to be a very gradual phased-in process where, for example, already now we have closed the 2 units of Komati Power Station, and we will be gradually closing a unit here, a unit there, up until the time that we feel that we need to close, at least so far, all 4 power stations that we have identified. There could be others as well in the future, depending on how many more we need to close so that we can create space for the renewables. But the most important thing, among other things, again, is to emphasize that we are not saying there's not going to be any usage of coal at all. Eskom currently has 13 coal-fired power stations. We are building 2 new ones, which is Tupi and Kusile. So in other words, so far at least, we are closing 4 of these power stations. We have the majority of our power still coming from coal, but the fact of the matter, indeed, it is true that the companies that are involved, especially the trucking companies, including the mining houses, their output will be affected because we will not be using as much coal as we currently are using.
Now, you talk about their output being affected. Making use of these independent power producers may lead to a loss of many jobs in the energy and mining sectors. Is there a plan to save these jobs at all? What is the plan here?
You know, I'm hopeful that at some point, with the assistance of government, there will be some kind of an endeavor where all the role players within the sector will have a say as to how this is going to happen. Because remember, Eskom is an agent or agency of government. We're implementing government decisions. So the government as the shareholder will possibly have to call a meeting somewhere where everyone will be in one room. We all of us thresh out a plan as to how we're going to save the jobs. But from our side as a company, we will do everything possible to make sure that our people who are working at our power stations are transferred to other power stations and hopefully the mining houses themselves will, because we are still going to continue to use coal. Hopefully some of these people who are working in some of those mines will be transferred to other mines as well, so that you don't have any job losses. And I heard from the renewable energy people also saying that some of the trucking companies, they can be used to transport the turbines and things like that they're using in their power stations. I don't know how feasible it is, but obviously everyone can put their input, and then all of us as a industry can decide as to how we're going to help each other out.
So ultimately, pressure needs to be placed on government for this. Now, NUM have come out to say that this is seen to be a backdoor privatization of Eskom in the form of IPPs. What is your response to this?
Well, from our side, our shareholder, which is the government, has said that there's no plan to privatize Eskom, and the introduction of the renewable energy project, I'm unsure if it can be defined as a privatization, because privatization, the way I understand it is when you sell a component of your company to another set of shareholders. So Eskom still remains 100% owned by government, but South Africa has made a commitment to the United Nations through, I think, COP17, when we held COP17 here in Durban in 2010. So we wanted to reduce our gas emissions, and one of the ways in which we can achieve that is through the usage of renewables, and also at some point increasing our nuclear output.
And then lastly, Mr. Phasiwe, is Eskom ready for this national protest?
Well, we have already signed 64 renewable energy projects. They are producing or are contracted to produce 4,000 megawatts. Obviously, the challenge with renewables is that many of them are solar projects. If the sun is shining, like today I'm in Cape Town, the sun is shining brightly, we're going to get some energy from them. If the wind is not blowing, today in Cape Town the wind is not blowing, so I'm not sure how much we're going to get out of it. But anyway, that's the decision of government to say that we want to diversify, and that's what we're doing now.
And in terms of the national protest, is Eskom ready?
Well, the way I understand this, the protest is not going to be against Eskom necessarily. It's almost going to be similar to the trucking companies who are sort of raising their frustrations to the government, because it's a government decision. So, but from our side, we will see as it comes. But I think generally our stakeholders, especially the unions, they do know that we are not a policy maker, and therefore, if they have any qualms, I'm sure they're going to direct it to the Department of Energy and government as a whole.
Khulu Phasiwe, thank you so much for your time here. That is Eskom spokesperson talking about the fact that Eskom has decided to close 5 power stations down.